Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our May Brown Bag Lunch program. My name is Tova Brandt. I'm the Executive Director of the Museum of Danish-America, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all, those of you online and those of you joining us virtually. Our topic today is actually an internal topic looking at kind of some of the stories and reasons behind our major exhibition on view right now, which is Danish Ceramics, Beyond Blue and White. And to tell that story of the behind the scenes is our Albert Ravenholt Curator of Danish-American Culture, Adam Bierstedt. Adam.
All right. Hello, everyone. It is so good to see everyone on this beautiful May Thursday. To everyone watching online as well, it is good to see you too. As said, my name is Adam Bierstedt, and I am the Albert Ravenholt Curator of Danish-American Culture here at the Museum of Danish-America. I am the primary interpreter for the development of exhibits here at the museum, and it is my pleasure today to take you behind the scenes of Danish Ceramics Beyond Blue and White. But I want to start off with a little bit of a celebration. 2025 marks the 250th anniversary of the oldest Danish ceramics factory still in existence. Royal Copenhagen, established originally under the auspices of the Queen Regent Juliana Marie, was established actually in March of 1775, but on May 1st, 250 years ago this month, the Three Waves was chosen by their board to be the mark for Royal Copenhagen, and has come to define Danish porcelain ever since. And in fact, this anniversary is part of the reason why Danish Ceramics Beyond Blue and White exists. So we've known for some years that this anniversary was coming up, but 250 years is a very long time, and it marks a good chance to look backwards and to look forwards at the future of Danish ceramic art in Denmark. We have some experience in this field. The museum's first foray into displaying ceramic art was back in 2014, actually focusing on a Danish designer at an American company, with nude faces, cubist vases, modernism, and rookwood pottery. Rookwood pottery is the most prestigious American ceramic factory at the turn of the 20th century, and one of their designers, Jens Jensen, was a Dane. And so back then we had several of his pieces on loan, and now we actually have some in our permanent collection. We have had further forays with the whimsical world of Bjørn Wienblad in 2016, Vessel ceramic art by Michael Geertsen and Morten Lubner Espersen in 2019, and at the end of 2020, Art Nouveau Innovation, Danish porcelain from an American collector. This 10-year history of displaying ceramics has given the museum a lot of confidence in our ability to tell the stories of Danish ceramic art and in the relevance of Danish ceramic art to Danish America specifically. However, all of those exhibits had one feature in common. They primarily showed other people's stuff. Those were all loaned exhibitions, and fabulous though they were, over those 10 years, we invested in developing a strong collection of our own. And so, from the beginning, Danish Ceramics Beyond Blue and White had several major goals. Obviously, we're celebrating that major anniversary with Royal Copenhagen's 250th, but we also wanted to do a major ceramic exhibit that primarily featured art from our permanent collection, art that we had collected, that people had donated to us, and say that, yes, we know this is important, and also we are equipped to tell these stories from what we own. We also wanted to start off with a high-level overview of the entire history of Danish ceramics. From that foundation, we hope to be able to continue to tell more specific stories about specific studios, specific designers, and specific types of ceramic art. To do that, as strong as our collection had been over the previous 40 years of our existence, we needed to acquire a lot of stuff. And so acquire we did. there is, over the course of 2024, we acquired over 100 pieces of ceramic art from around the United States and Denmark. A few of those pieces are highlighted here, but many of the pieces are new acquisitions to us. Now, this is only made possible due to the generosity of a lot of people. Specifically, I wanted to thank Bill Derenbacher, Kevin Henry, the New Carlsberg Fund, the Lindemann Schmidt family, and the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, all of whom helped facilitated purchases or donations from their collections into ours. That gave us a huge foundation ranging from the 18th century to 2019 in the scope of our new acquisitions. So that full 250 years, across the board, the quality of our collections has grown since the conception of this project. But of course, as strong as it has become, we weren't able to do this entirely out of our own collections. This story is too large and too interesting for one institution alone to really be able to tell it in full. And so, we strategically reached out to several other institutions to fill gaps, interesting designs, or important pieces of the narrative. So I wanted to thank, again, the Cincinnati Art Museum, the Birmingham Museum of Art, the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum, the Spencer Museum of Art, the American Swedish Institute, and Nancy Patterson Lamb for loaning materials to the Museum of Danish-America for this exhibit. Across the board, this gives us, within the exhibit, 84 pieces of ceramic art covering the time period 1780 to 2019. This is a truly encyclopedic overview of Danish ceramic art, not just Royal Copenhagen, not just Bing and Brundle, not just porcelain, but every format, many studios, and over 40 different artists exploring themes as diverse as gender, figuralism versus abstraction, specific studio production, the economic factors that made Danish ceramics a global powerhouse, and contemporary postmodern art as well. In order to do all of that, we had to do a lot of research, right? Having good things is not enough to create a great exhibition. And so we had to do a lot of research. But there's just one small problem. So a lot of this work occurred between 2022 and 2023. By the fall of 2023, we had reached out to institutions. We had begun to conceive of this as a traveling exhibit with a national tour. We had developed a strong object list. We had strong leads on a lot of new acquisitions. I joined in January of 2024. And so a lot of the research knowledge that had been developed by my predecessor, Dia Nagaraj, on both the technical aspects of ceramic art and the artistic movements, kind of got reset. My background is in Vikings, not ceramic art, and certainly not the 20th century. And so, from the time I joined, at the end of January, right up until the summer of 2024, I had to, from scratch, completely rebuild my own knowledge of this art form in order to be able to tell this story effectively. We'd already committed to opening in November of 2024, so I was on a deadline. We had 10 months in order to start over, redo all of that research, rebuild the knowledge, and be able to turn this into a great exhibit. So there were a lot of aspects to that research. In addition to the expected of finding increasingly obscure web forums discussing how collectors viewed specific items, in addition to research on the open market, and in addition to traveling overseas to Denmark to consult with professionals at other museums, such as this visit to the Clay Ceramic Museum in Denmark in August of 2024, we had to do a lot of reading. As it turns out, there's been a lot written on Danish ceramics over the years. Most recently, this volume by Dr. Todd Reiser, who actually is the collector behind Art Nouveau innovation. Many, many thousands of pages have been written on this subject, and I quickly found that we evolved from not knowing anything to, frankly, going way too deep onto far too many topics, ranging from the origins of the porcelain industry in Europe in the early 1700s to the motivations behind Art Nouveau and the World's Fair phenomenon at the turn of the 20th century, right through to contemporary postmodernism and the biographies of individual artists. So many people helped contribute to this research, and there was so much information. So to Alan Anderson, to Kevin Henry, and to Dia Nagaraj, and to everyone else who could stand Tillotson, everyone else who contributed to this research, this exhibit is truly a team effort. But there are some advantages to starting over completely from scratch. Because I quickly found, as I was going, many reasons to love this art form and to try and center that sense of awe, that sense of discovery within the exhibit's narrative. I want to share with you the story of this piece. This piece has been in our collection since 1990. So since before this building existed, we have had this piece of blue lace porcelain. It is, in many ways, an extremely typical piece of Royal Copenhagen's design. It is design number 1. It is their standard blue lace pattern that continues to be issued to this day. But this one stood out as being almost low quality. It's got a little bit of a yellowish gray hue. It's far from the nicest piece of this pattern in our collection, but something about it just stuck with me. In our collection records, we didn't have a clear evidence for what date it was from. We suspected about the 1870s. So before some important technological innovations occurred to really refine the color, refine the pattern. When I was in Denmark in August of 2024, in the Clay Curator Museum's collections, they had a couple pieces that looked strikingly similar in coloration to this one. And so when I got back, I sent some images of the piece over to Alan Anderson, and he was able to, based on one teeny tiny, almost invisible mark on the underside of this piece, tell us that this piece is not from 1870. It is from 1790. It is from the very first generation of blue painters at this company. And it has been in our collection this whole time. There is something truly spectacular about uncovering these stories and being able to really turn around and say, yes, the Museum of Danish-America has been collecting significant pieces, even if we didn't necessarily know it, for a very long time. And so now, having brought ourselves up to speed on some of the knowledge, made some important discoveries, we need to actually create that narrative, turn information into an exhibit. So we worked with a professional design firm in order to give this exhibit that extra level of polish and refinement that really the strength of our collections justifies. This is the very first draft of what this exhibit would look like. There is a lot of competing ideas going on visible in this design, ranging from the earliest ceramics, which are not from the 18th century, but in fact from the Mesolithic 6,000 years ago, through to Viking Age material, through to early 18th century experiments, and then circling all the way around to the present day contemporary ceramics and this idea of a tradition. The percentages here basically correlate to how much of the exhibit text is going to be spent on any given section, but with so many competing ideas, it immediately became apparent that this information could develop in many different ways. And in many different ways it did. I have here an example of the first panel of the exhibit. The version on the right is the version that exists up in the gallery. This is an earlier draft. I won't bore everyone by reading through it, but basically over half of the original text that we came up with wound up getting cut in order to focus the narrative. This is part of every exhibit's development. With the amount of research that has been written and the amount of research we had been doing, there was simply so much information to communicate at once. But if we try to tell all of it at the same time, it becomes a textbook, not something people will engage with, and it distracts from the quality of those pieces. And so we iterated over about 10 drafts to bring that down, continue to decide what is important, what names are important, what designers are important, and what information is important in order to provide a comprehensive overview, an overview that reflects the diversity of our pieces, but also something that is just a foundation. All of this information can be brought back in future exhibits as our collection allows. But the second one is, without a doubt, more compelling, I think, in every regard. And so we did that across the board, right? We built out from all of these different ideas, all of these directions, all of these concepts that we thought were important, and began selecting them to create a more refined, more coherent narrative. And it's worth going into more detail about that, right? We make decisions based on a couple of important criteria, right? What concepts are actually important, and what objects relate to what parts of the story. So there are some things that are really, really exciting, really, really interesting, and we simply don't have the pieces to tell that story and tell all of these other things that are exciting. And so at some point, we have to sit down and say, we want to explore this. These 10 pieces might be relevant, but we're using 3 of them over here already. This one is really significant. We want to highlight it by itself. These 2 are by the same studio. They relate to a bunch of other pieces by the studio. And suddenly, out of those 10 pieces, we're left with 2. And that's just not really enough for the level of complexity that we're dealing with. And so, at every stage, the exhibit text, from the object labels to the large banner stand, really does that work of connecting a strong collection of objects to specific, limited ideas. And so if we revisit this, by August, we had developed it a little bit. The colors are the same, but we're actually in the gallery now. And we've removed a lot of these ideas that our objects simply couldn't explore. Gone are the ideas of Viking Age or Mesolithic material. Gone is this focus on hundreds of new technologies. Gone is this focus on something like the American market. As fascinating of a story as Danish Ceramics taking the American market by storm in the 1950s and early 1960s is, and as important as the collapse of the American market at the end of the 1960s is for the collapse of Danish modernism, the objects simply fit better elsewhere. We had too many great designers to talk about, such a strong Danish market to talk about, such a vibrant cultural milieu within Denmark, that we simply can't expand that in detail. As it was, in this redesign, by this iteration of the draft, we had gone from 65 pieces in the exhibition to 84. Because we simply had to revisit a lot of our assumptions of what pieces were good, what pieces were necessary, and add pieces in to make the collection strong enough to support the concepts we had settled on. And unfortunately, that means there are wonderful things left on the cutting room floor. This piece is one of my favorite pieces in the collection because I know so little about it. It is a mystery that has defied me since February, so a year and a half almost, since I first learned about it. It has been defying every attempt I have found to explain it. So to go into a little more detail, this piece is from before 1823. That is by Royal Copenhagen, and it is older than 1823. Past that, we know nothing with confidence. We do not know who made it. We do not know why it was made. There is exactly one other piece that we are aware of, made by any Danish studios, that looks remotely similar to this. It is also in our collection. This doesn't help us answer very many questions. Every other curator, every other consultant I have talked to has never seen a Danish porcelain piece that looks anything like this. And yet, it is extremely high quality. The flower on the top is incredibly paper thin, and it is hand-shaped leaves of porcelain that were then glazed after assembly. You can see the glaze pooling with a spectacular red color. The farm animals, as kind of strange of a choice for a high-status porcelain object it is to paint a chicken on it, it is executed extremely well. The yellow color has persisted extraordinarily well, though it is itself strange for other technical reasons. It flakes like it's painted, which is not how porcelain gets produced. That should be a glaze that has adhered. It shouldn't be possible for it to be flaking like that, and yet it is. So it's clearly high status, and it's clearly old, but past that, it has defied all attempts to gain definitive truth about it. But that's really exciting, because there's a lot of potentials and a lot of elements to the story that can get brought in with this. It has a lot of similarity to some French and German pieces from earlier in the 1700s. And potentially, it is a copycat piece produced either as an experiment or on commission after Christian VII of Denmark in 1790 banned the import of French, German, and English porcelain to the country. We don't know that for sure. In the exhibit, we get one sentence about that porcelain ban, and we have to leave all of that intrigue on the cutting room floor. And so, having done all this work all the way through from about March of 2024 through to October of 2024, we finally had the design lockdown, the graphics design sent off to the printers. All of the pieces had arrived on site from around the world after plenty of interesting shipping delays. And so we were finally able to lay out all of the pieces in the same room, and for the first time, see this exhibit come to life. You can see these are the acquisitions, all of the acquisitions from the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. You can see our two mysterious yellow vases there. You can also see a lot of other fantastic pieces, some of which are in the exhibit and some of which are not. It really says something about the quality of our acquisitions that for as good as the pieces in the exhibit, there are pieces as good that we had to leave out simply because we had too many good ones. And that's a fantastic place to be. But we finally laid them all out, and we're finally ready to install. With one important thing. In order to get all of these ready, ceramics are very nice because they are very easy to take care of. They are very resistant to cleaning materials. Even water on some materials is very dangerous. On ceramics, not a problem. They're very light-proof, so they're easy to display. They're very durable across the board. They also do collect dust, though. And so I spent a full week in this room with a Q-tip cleaning all 84 pieces in that exhibit. And let me tell you, some of these artists are remarkably technically proficient and create remarkably delicate, refined, full of holes shapes. They don't think of the poor curators who have to go through and clean all of their work. And some of these pieces have not been seen in over 100 years. Some of the pieces have never been displayed to the public. Some of them have not been displayed since their acquisition at the end of the 1800s. 100 years of dust on something as visually complex as the Princess and the Pea visible on the left side of the screen there takes a lot of cleaning. And yet the results speak for themselves. These pieces show a spectacular degree of artistry. From the very earliest ones, incredibly proficient designers and craftspeople were involved. And across artistic movements, across generations of training, across innovations of material, of production technique, of personal taste, of economic circumstance. Really, what spending this quality time with those artifacts told me is that the thing that unites Danish ceramics above all else is that they're all really freaking good. Even things that we take for granted, like Christmas plates, figurines, things integral to the Danish-American experience, are phenomenal pieces of art that show teams of people, dozens of people, absolutely dedicated to creating the highest quality product that they can. And it shows. As these pieces began to glow, cleaned of generations of dust, I'd already fallen in love with them from the research process, but I fell in love with them all over again from that quality time. And if you're curious, that's one reason why so many of these pieces are out, visible. They're not behind glass if you go into our gallery. It is only through minute, close examination that you can really appreciate how remarkable these pieces are. And you can't do that when there's a piece of glass between you and it. So I really wanted to encourage people to get close to these pieces, spend your time with them, and see all of that craftsmanship, all of that refinement, and the absolute remarkable mastery of sculpture that these pieces represent. And so on November 14th, November 14th, November 15th, we had a fantastic opening for this exhibit. We had visitors come over from Denmark specifically for this. The Lindman-Schmidt family here on the right side, next to the Palshus, the Lindman-Schmidt family pieces on view. I could not be happier and prouder of the whole team's work in putting this together. It was an absolute success, and what a delightful evening to get to spend celebrating 250 years of mastery of this material. We're now 6 months on, and certainly that process is ongoing, right? That opening was a success, but we've continued to improve and refine the exhibit since then, based on your feedback, correcting object labels as our research process continues, adding even more pieces into this exhibit as needed. Our collection continues to grow. On the right is a collection of pieces by the designer Knud Kuhn, an incredibly important long-running designer at Royal Copenhagen. He began in 1912. He retired in 1969. So a generational talent for Royal Copenhagen, who we did not were not able to represent in the initial opening of this exhibit. We just acquired 8 fabulous pieces by him, and so he will be joining the artifacts in the collection, finally. And our collection, as I mentioned, is much stronger than just this exhibit. You can see some of our other acquisitions on our lower level right now, but going forward, we intend to continue to tell stories with Danish Ceramics, telling more focused stories around animal figurines and the use of animals in Danish art, around specific studios like Palshus, or about Saxbo, other major stoneware studios, celebrating the connections between Denmark and the United States through designers like Jens Jensen at Rookwood Pottery and others. And of course, Danish Ceramics Beyond Blue and White will be going on a national tour. We're not quite ready to say exactly who will be taking it, but we're so excited to be able to announce that in the coming months as those plans finalize, and to be able to share this with audiences around the country. So if you are watching this recording, do keep an eye out to see if Danish Ceramics Beyond Blue and White is coming to a museum near you. And yeah, that does it for this brief behind-the-scenes look. I hope, as you visit, that you take the time to come up. Danish Ceramics Beyond Blue and White will be on view here at the Museum of Danish America until April 20th of 2026. So there is still a full year from the date of this talk, 11 months from the date of this talk to come see it. So I hope we'll see many of you up in the galleries soon. Thank you very much. And does anyone have questions? All right. Yes, Annette?
The oldest piece that you were telling us about, that small little Muslim island.
Yeah.
Where is it sitting right now?
What a great question. Annette asked where that cream jug that I showed earlier, where is it right now? It is currently on view in the gallery as part of the exhibit. It is positioned next to some of the oldest pieces produced by Bing and Grundle.
I missed it. And I missed it.
It is next to the bust of Napoleon Bonaparte that is also in the exhibit.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions, please feel free to reach out and ask them at any time. But thank you very much for your attention, and have a good rest of your day.